The first item on our agenda tonight is the review and approval of the site plan review minutes from November 25th and Plan Commission from November 25th, if you all are fine taking those both together. Motion by Mr. Krieger,
Second.
second by Mr. Blanky. Comments or questions on either of those? All right, all in favor, please say aye.
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 Anyone opposed? All right, let's go to our business then. Our first item is a public hearing for 700 Hoffman Drive. This is a request for a conditional use permit for a group development. I will call the public hearing to order. If anyone would like to comment, you can come to the microphone. Or anyone remotely that would like to comment. All right, we'll close that public hearing and then let's move to the action item for that topic. Brian.
All right, so we have a conditional use permit for a group development for the Lumen Terrace apartment complex at the Rock River Ridge plat. They have answered all the requirement questions for a group development. There are two that need to be waived. One is that the group development shall not take access to a local residential street. Johnson Street would be a local residential street. And then the other is the to waive the requirement for 1.5 times the required landscaping points for foundation and paved area landscaping. But otherwise they meet or they're not applicable for all the rest of the requirements.
Could you share a little bit about anything that's relevant from site plan today? Is there any, I don't know if there was, but
I think that actually was on the 25th. It's
Okay.
in your note. There was mainly it was the there was a question about storage where because
Oh, yeah.
there are no garages or basements where people would store outdoor things like grills and bikes and things like that.
right,
And then the fire department had the normal requirements about sprinklers and wanting to make sure that Knox boxes and things like that were on there. Police department did notify or did have a point about, you know, at some point with all this new development that there may be additional officers needed. And I think the rest of it was pretty straightforward stuff. The solid waste just would let them know that they had to do private trash pickup and recycling. And there were no other, there was a question about sidewalk on Johnson Street, and I believe Andrew answered that for them, saying that they were responsible for putting that in. Otherwise, I think that's it.
and then this is the materials.
Those are material board in front of you, yes.
So what's sitting down here in front of me is the materials for Lumen Terrace
Not necessarily the colors, but the
materials.
yeah.
Okay. Andrew, were you good with the street item? The arterial street or residential street access?
Yeah, I was okay with that.
Okay. And then can you tell me a little bit about landscaping? Were they close?
Well, the group development asks them to enhance the foundational plantings and the I think it's the parking area plantings, and they simply submitted a plan that met the standard without
Okay.
the 1.5 times.
So it meets our basic.
Yeah, it meets the
requirement.
requirements, just doesn't meet the enhanced 1.5.
Enhancement.
Yeah.
Okay, that helps. All right, other questions that you all may have? Or comments? So then we're looking to approve the conditional use permit with the two conditions of waiving section B3 and 5K.
Correct.
All right. Somebody want to make that motion?
So moved.
Thank you, Mr. Krieger. Second by Ms. Talaga. Anything that you'd like to add? Just make it, no is a fine answer, but you know, you're here and you're an engineer, so you probably really want to share something.
Good afternoon, everyone. Reed Jans, Excel Engineering, on the civil engineering part of this project. Yeah, as has been noted, we met the base landscape requirements for the project. With the base zoning for the lot, I would encourage you to take a look at that landscape plan. We are filling in all the foundational areas around the buildings. So I think we're, when you consider the size of these shrubs and everything that is happening with this site, I think we're basically optimizing the space as much as possible to provide as many landscape plants as possible. Once again, meeting your base code for points in those areas, which is a pretty significant requirement when you just look at the total number of plants on this site. So I'd encourage you to consider our proposal to meet the base zoning for the landscape. I'm here. I can certainly answer any additional questions you have at this time.
If you're gonna grab this, I just want to take a quick peek at it. So I didn't get a good look, but if there's no questions or comments, we do have a motion and a second. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? All right, very good. Okay. Thank you. Thanks, Scott. What's next for them, Brian?
Thank you.
They are building permits, basically.
That's what I
They're-
thought.
They're ready to jump in and start building.
So not anything to, casually just pass in favor of. I mean, that's a pretty big milestone to continue to fill out this residential housing development. So thank you guys for the support. All right, let's move on to our another residential housing project. This is to review and make recommendation to the council on an Edgefield preliminary plat. Brian.
Right, so this is a 54 lot subdivision plat with a mixture of single family and twin home lots. They do need to add the airport protection zone elevation to their plat. And they will also need to have a rezoning that runs concurrent with the final plat approval for those twin lot home lots. Otherwise, there are a few recommended conditions at the end of the staff report there, mainly to add road names, dedicate Milford Street, County Highway right of way, and dedicate the little remnant to the east of that as an outlot. Again, there's some notes about which lots are paired up for twin homes. And probably the biggest or contentious issue perhaps would be the extension of River Road west to Ryan Ridge on the plat. Right now, that's just shown as a 40-foot utility easement, but the staff has decided that that would be a good place for a road connection to enter the plat. And then, of course, there's a error on the plat about the outlot 2 being designated as a park, so that would also need to be removed.
Okay. What questions or comments or Corey, do you want to provide anything? You don't have to, just come. Okay, perfect. Thoughts, questions, comments? Yes, sir.
The biggest one that I have is the River Road aspect. Citizens in the adjacent area, the Heb Heights subdivision, one of their biggest concerns that I think that we can address starting at this point is egress. And currently, if this is developed, all of the traffic has to go to one road. Effectively.
To the north, yes.
Yes. So that's a lot of traffic going out to that one road of egress. So for me, I need to see that River Road going through to Ryan Ridge. And I think we should make that a condition at this point in time.
It would basically follow that if you go back down, up or down, or call it that right of way there, or that easement that you see there between River Road, yeah, that it would basically widen that out and turn that into a street.
What do you think about that?
I think it makes sense. Provides that additional egress, ingress point. One thing to consider, and I don't know where this falls, but there might need to be some improvements on Milford Street, County Trunk Highway A for that additional point, like a bypass lane or something for cars turning left into this development. So cars can go around and continue on Milford Street. But I think it makes sense from an ingress egress perspective.
Yeah, would you come to a microphone though? I was just trying to look for the existing dwelling.
It's the one just to the south. It's, yeah, where it says, yeah, right there. Yep. Those buildings are gonna be removed, yes. Either way.
Corey, I have one person attending remotely. Those are portable, so if you need to stand at a screen, I'm happy to. I just need you to use the mic, please.
Corey O'Donnell, Graymar, Loose Homes. The discussion of the access
for River Road to Ryan Ridge had come up at site plan committee, and I did have a chance to evaluate that. Couple talking points is clearly one that was discussed with the bypass lane. Right now, a portion of that area is controlled by the city through right-of-way dedication. But I think we would be involved, the county as well, if we did attempt to make a connection there.
No, I
I've
think
not-
that's entirely within the city limits now with the annexation, the intersection.
So none of the
Oh.
bypass
Yeah.
lane or any of the additional
That would all,
infrastructure?
yeah, the bypass lane would be, I say, a right turn lane coming from the north going south, that would all be in the city limits, and it's,
Because that would be my first concern.
Yeah.
If the county would get into it, we could be looking at considerable amount of infrastructure requirement that would be there. The design that we implemented here is been implemented in the city of Watertown in numerous locations. We could speak to Schuman Drive for Grandview Heights. You've got over 250 lots that exit onto two roads, essentially, that exits out onto Fourth Street then. And, you know, we're looking at a very typical design here with significantly less homes. Right now, if that connection would be made to River Road, we'd be looking at 5 access points coming into this plat that has 54 lots. And I'm not sure there's another plat in the city that has 5 access points that comes into a 20-acre parcel. So that is a lot of infrastructure that's being built for this subdivision. One of the things we really try and do when we plan communities is ultimately make them cost affordable, bringing price points down. That's why we brought twin homes into the project, because we could provide a product that the price point drops, that we could be in, you know, mid 350s with the home. Now with building all of this road, that's driving the cost up. We've got road stubs to the west. We've got road stubs to the south. Now we're going to have a road stub going into River Road. So that's a lot of infrastructure that's being built, and that's expensive to do. So if that connection really does need to be made to River Road, I'd really like to have conversation or talking points about those other stubs. We certainly could dedicate right of way and have those stubs there for future development, but not necessarily build those road stubs out with this development. You know, that's roughly 150 feet of road to the south and 150 feet of road to the west that could be eliminated. We would dedicate the right of way, and it could be built when those developments would occur to the south and to the west. But I could take the cost that for what we're saving by not building those and put that into the infrastructure that needs to be built to River, to the,
Can I make sure? So are you talking this one and this one when you're saying stubs to the south and the west?
correct, yes. So that.
So designate the right of way, but not put this stub in or this stub in, instead put in this road.
Correct.
Okay, just want to make sure everyone's on the same page.
And where it gets tricky to the stub to County Road, we would be losing a lot. So lot yield would be sacrificed. And there is also wetlands over there. So there's some redesign that needs to occur for that area.
The wetlands is what I was curious about when I was looking at that lot. Did you have something?
I think it's completely reasonable to waive putting those stubs in now in exchange for building this road. And I understand what you're saying, that this is only 54 lots in comparison to what we have in the Schuman Drive area. However, you also have Johnsonville that is also emptying onto this egress point to the north. So, and there's a fairly consistent amount of traffic there as well. And there's also an industrial park in that area that's
Yeah,
emptying out here as well. So there's a lot of,
It's very mixed use.
yeah, there's a lot of non-residential traffic also emptying onto this, which is why I think it's important for the residential traffic to have a separate egress.
And I think that would be a fair compromise. It helps us offset costs, get the city the connectivity that I think they would need in the future that isn't necessarily needed now.
This is way harder than you guys think it is. I'm gonna stop trying to pull up them. Like every time I get close, something crazy happens. Okay. Others, thoughts on that? I'm just trying to get a wider view so that everyone can see what area we're looking at. So this is what you're referring to, obviously, Mr. Blanky, right?
Yes. Yeah, all the traffic would empty onto Perry Way and then Perry Way down to Commerce and Industrial. That's
Hmm.
a fairly busy area.
Talk to me about those road stubs. So what does that look like then? Just a field?
Yeah, so it would just be a field. So the right of way would be dedicated by
Yeah.
the plat, so the land would exist, and it would just be a road stub. It would be vacant land.
Sure, like at the end of Sand Street or Silver Drive, all those weird ones over by Brandon Sign Park.
Yeah, more or less. There's a good example in phase 2 of this on Casey Drive at Ryan Ridge where really the curb just goes around and then it terminates at the back of the curb radius.
Yeah.
For the future stub. So envisioning something similar to that here.
You are fine with that?
Conceptually, yeah.
Are the fire chiefs fine with that? Or chief? They use stubs to turn around sometimes. So I just want to make sure that that wouldn't be an issue.
This is a looped road. I would think that they would have the connectivity.
Oh, sure. Yep, okay. Yep. What do you guys think?
I'm hearing consensus between the stakeholder and the committee on the main question, so if consensus is emerging, I think I'm in support of that consensus.
Have you looked at the wetlands?
Not in detail. We drove the site today and it looked doable, but I haven't, dug into the plans
Okay.
with wetland
What
delineation.
about you? Corey, have you guys taken a peek at that?
Yeah, we had them delineated, and that's an isolated wetland field, and the Army Corps has not taken jurisdiction over it,
Oh,
which is good. So I think that a wetland fill for that small section, if a road had to go through it,
Okay.
would not be an issue. I think we might be able to stay out of it as well. It's just, it's near. where
close.
we have
Yeah,
to
I had
go.
awareness of that too. Okay. Well, I think it's a really great creative compromise. And I know it's something that residents have cared about, so I appreciate you bringing it forward again and having some willingness to make that piece work. So Brian, you keep track of that one because I'm gonna ask you to fashion that into an adjustment. Do you have others?
Not at
Oh,
this time.
you looked like you were putting a finger up, so I didn't mean to like call on you. I
Sorry.
just felt like you were
That's all
like
right.
gonna motion for something else. Anything else from anyone on Plan Commission? Anybody in the audience itching for anything in particular on this piece? I've recognized a few of your faces, so sure. Thanks, Corey.
Hello, my name is Andy Boxell. I live at 809 Casey Drive. If you zoom out here, I'm the southeasternmost house.
Didn't you see how much I struggled?
Uh,
I'm just kidding. Okay.
Apologies, Mayor.
No, it's okay. I kid.
So just north of that retention pond.
This one?
Nope, other side. There you go.
Okay.
So I just want to voice support for the compromise that seems to have emerged here. As it's been pointed out, without an additional access point, nearly all of the traffic would utilize that eastern portion of Casey Drive. I think it's worth noting as well that that's essentially a blind hill coming up Perry Way, attaching to Linda Lane. And because of the proximity to Highway A, Casey Drive, I think, would take a very large proportion of the traffic into the new development without having that additional access point. So certainly I'm in support of that. I understand, and appreciate the need for additional housing development. And I think that's a very reasonable compromise. The last thing I'll say, it sounds like perhaps it was an error to have Outlot 2 designated as a park space. But I will just voice for the record my support of turning this existing outlot, which is in the stubbed area of Ryan Ridge to the north of Casey Drive there, into a park. It's essentially a wasted acre right now. And this neighborhood is disconnected from any sort of park by sidewalk or walkable road. So certainly go on the record as supporting turning that into a park sooner rather than later.
The developer is willing to dedicate that land to the city for those purposes.
Thank you, Corey.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, sir. Mason, do you want to provide a little, I feel like you know that insight the best out of anyone in this room right now.
Thank you for mentioning that. And staff is in agreement. We've had several internal conversations, starting with Corey a while ago when Loose Homes conceptually presented this new subdivision of Edgefield. And we tried to work with various city departments, and there was agreement that the existing space inside the existing Hep Heights subdivision would be a much better location for a new neighborhood park versus one along Milford Street in the new Edgefield subdivision. Staff does not have a desire for two parks in so close proximity. Parks and Rec does not necessarily have the staff or capacity to maintain 2 new parks in that area, especially noting that Grinwald Park is right up the road on Milford Street. So, yeah, I think everybody's in agreement. Lot 2 was not supposed to be presented as a new park. That was a drafting error on the plat. It's intended for stormwater mitigation and so forth.
All right, thanks, Mason.
Yep, thank you.
Anyone else? So what I'm throwing on this list is L. River Road shall connect.
That's already covered in I. I think what you want to add is that the
Oh, sure.
west and south stub roads will be platted but not constructed.
West and south stub roads
Once we have names, we can put the formal names to them, but
connected, not platted. Very good. Thank you.
platted but not constructed.
Thank you. Platted but not constructed.
Yes.
I'll come back to you in just a moment. Go ahead, sir.
Dean Gagliano, 909 Casey Drive. So I'm somewhere in the center of Casey Drive there. It might be dense, but what is the current plan right now to get into this new subdivision?
The current plan, like,
Yeah, how do new property owners get into it currently, or what's that proposed plan right
ahead.
now?
That would be the Linda Lane and the Ridge, Ryan Ridge. Those 2 roads would then.
right here?
So
Yeah.
just those two.
Those would come down a loop around, basically. That's the current setup.
So all these new houses would have to go through our current.
Yeah, that's why the request for the connection to River
Right here
Road.
then. This would be the third is what I'm showing on the screen. Would be through here.
Yep.
Yeah,
Okay.
Let me click back to the packet.
All right. Yeah, it's gonna be, I haven't been able to look at it. I tried pulling it up and it wouldn't load for me.
Here we go.
So this is a easement currently.
Yep.
And the proposal is instead of them building this stub and this stub, this easement would become a road.
Okay. And we're not promising that right now, right? Like that's just,
That would be a condition of approval here tonight, to move on to the final plat
Got it.
would be that they include that.
I know, I could probably speak for a lot of the people here that live in that neighborhood. The roads there are pretty shitty right now. You know, I've lived there for 6+ years and no one's ever come in and paved that road yet. I actually had many, many months of a big hole right in front of my house that wasn't covered and paved because they put some new water lines in. And then something happened and they had to cut it out and it sat there cut out for months before they were even
Yeah.
able to put it in. So I feel like that extra traffic is not going to be helpful for that neighborhood. On top of that, we have a lot of kids specifically that live in that neighborhood. I mean, I have a 3-year-old and a 1-year-old myself. And there's a lot of other kids in that neighborhood that play in those roads because it's a private, pretty much secluded area to the rest of the city. So having all of that traffic of a whole new neighborhood going through there would be quite challenging, to say the least.
It's not necessarily anything to do with the loose development, but just for perspective, those cuts into the pavement, we only bring a paver to the community like 2 or 3 times a year, normally around 2 times a year. So you're right. It does stink that if you have that at the beginning of that season or in the winter is the worst.
Yeah.
You're gonna wait until like June, potentially July for that to come and get paved. So completely understand.
And it's not
It
even
does
just
stink.
that one. It's more like, you know, where I live, there's a manhole cover literally right in front of my driveway.
Mhm.
And every single year, the snowplow knocks it over and it goes into my driveway.
Yeah.
Like literally breaks
We
it
can
into
take
a
that.
million pieces
We
every
looked at
year.
it today.
And it's because the road itself just,
We knew you
it's
were
not
coming.
finished.
They looked at it today.
Good.
They knew you were.
You should have stopped by. I'm
You showed up. Those are helpful things for us to hear about. There is, the city in the last handful or so of years has really created a much more regimented approach to testing asphalt compounds, or for lack of a technical term. So we have seen some of that in some of our newer neighborhoods, and newer, I'm gonna say like 20 years up until maybe the last 10 to 20 years back. We saw those in a couple of places. And so we made some adjustments this last handful of years to make sure that we're not accepting roads, for example, I'm using you because you're right here, Corey, from loose without the appropriate core testing of that asphalt to make sure that it's what we expect for the longevity of a roadway.
Yeah, I've been there for 6.5 years and nothing new has happened.
Yeah, I mean, if that road.
There's water that stands on it because there's so many pits in it. It's an awful road,
Yeah.
and we pay a lot of money in taxes, right? In that specific neighborhood in particular. So it would be nice to have something nice there.
Yeah, sounds like we're out there today.
Cool, thanks.
Yes.
I'm Chad Bailey. I live on Linda Lane. So just, I'll keep it brief, but wanted to reiterate the importance of an access road off of Highway A or Milford Street. For a lot of the reasons that have been mentioned here, obviously. So one thing I'm concerned about is what the other gentleman mentioned here, which is there are a lot of young families in the neighborhood who are out often with kids on strollers, bikes, whatever, taking walks. So speed along Linda Lane or Casey Drive would be a concern. The larger the neighborhood, the longer the roads, the faster the speeds typically. It's also noteworthy, I don't know how many of you have been out on Perry Way. I know Brad's certainly been out on Perry Way, and it's in really rough condition. I don't think that one's slated for rework anytime soon.
Once
but-
this project came up, I mentioned it right away.
Okay.
That's not to say it's gonna, I'm not in charge of selecting the ordering of roads, but I mentioned that we needed to make sure those were evaluated and put into a plan. That plan gets approved by the Public Works Commission, but I agree with you. Some shouldering, things like that as well in the interim.
So if that were to be the only access road, that would definitely be problematic, just in terms of sheer volume. And then if there is, again, speaking in support of the idea, if there is a proposal for any park out there of any type, my kids are older and grown, but I appreciate the younger families that are there and the number of young kids that are in the neighborhood. So any amendment, any amenities that young families might find useful would be much appreciated. But the stub off of Highway A, or the access road rather, off of Highway A or Milford Street would be a huge win. So thank you. I appreciate you making that a condition.
Thank you. Come on up, my friend.
Friends now.
I generally am friends with most people until they tell me we aren't.
Oh,
So you let me know, I guess.
we're good. Eric Lugie, 915 Casey. I think the only thing I really wanted to bring up is Ridge Court and some of the northern houses on Casey Drive have a lot of stormwater issues. We brought it up to Mr. Blanky when he came and visited us, and I'm just want to make sure that we're looking into, you know, what's gonna be different on this one versus when the developer did it the last time. There's been no fixes yet for those issues. The river's going through their houses or through their backyards, all that stuff. So that hasn't been addressed yet. So why are we moving forward when we haven't fixed the past issues? Is I guess what I'm trying to say. So
You've taken a peek at some of that.
I
Yeah,
can
and
send videos.
if you could, that would help
Yeah,
us
we have plenty of
tremendously.
them,
So
so,
yeah,
yeah.
we would appreciate that. We
Sure.
went, Maureen and I stopped out with Alder Blanky today and took a look at some of the rear yards that you're describing. And we're gonna research the grading plans and make sure, just kind of investigate further what's
Okay.
going on there.
All right.
So more to come.
Thank you.
Yep.
Andrew, just to piggyback on that, because I know they also asked about it and a lot of them are here. We also looked at that stormwater pond at the corner
This one,
of Casey and Casey apparently. Yes.
good. Anything else? All right, if that is all that we have, I'm looking for a motion to approve the preliminary plat with the conditions identified in 3 with the addition of, why don't you say it for us one more time?
Would be the west and south stub roads would be platted but not constructed.
Great. Is there such a motion? So moved. Motion by Ms. Talaga.
Okay.
Second by Mr. Blanky. And Mr. Blanky, Ms. Lampy had to jump off just for minutes. Any other comments or questions? All right, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Great. Thank you all for coming. I'll give you a moment to, you're gonna leave? What the heck? Just kidding. You're welcome to go. Hey, thanks, Corey. I appreciate it. I'm just kidding. You guys are obviously welcome to go. Most people do go, so. All right. Next up, we have a couple of Hunter Oaks items. So the first is just an initial review and scheduling of a public hearing at the Common Council. This is for the Hunter Oaks Plan Development Amendment. Brian, can you start us out?
Sure. So this is another amendment to the planned development for Hunter Oaks. The last one was approved in August of this year. This looks to add some additional flexibilities due to the change in the layout of the plat because of a discovered wetland. So what it's going to ask for is that the The general development plan also serve as the precise implementation plan for area CB, which means they would not have to come back for an additional approval of that. It sets the minimum street frontage at 45 feet, the minimum lot width at 45 feet, changes the front yard setback to 24 feet, and reduces the total number of lots from 53 to 44. 4 of those lots have been previously approved by the Plan Commission through a CSM, so the plat itself has 40 total lots. And so it's just looking for a recommendation to send it to council for a public hearing on the January 7th.
Before I turn it over, I do want to point us all to the letter submitted by, I presume, Mr. Donovan, even though it's signed by Mr. Belinsky, that just talks about like the building setback. We previously approved 20. We're actually adding 4 feet to 24. So I just want to draw your eye there just for some comparisons. Go ahead.
Yeah, the 20 was actually a mistake. I mean, we found out that putting cars in a driveway, we need 4 extra feet, so we figured we would extend those to 24 feet instead of 20. And I'm here to answer any questions. I think we all kind of understand
we're
what's
doing.
going on here.
I agree. Does anyone have questions for Mr. Donovan? Or just a motion then to set the public hearing date for January 7th?
So moved.
Motion by Mr. Blanky, second by Mr. Krieger. Comments? All right, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Anybody opposed? All right, very good. Next then is to review and make recommendation on the Hunter Oaks Enclave preliminary plat. Brian,
So this is the plat that will create the lots for the area CB and the planned development. The previous plan development reduced the lot size down from 8,000 square feet to roughly 4,600 square feet. Changed some of these building setbacks that we already discussed and reduced the right of way for one of the new roads to 60 feet. They would also need to add the airport approach protection zone to the plat. And there's a couple of minor details that we discussed with Mr. Donovan at site plan today about adding to the site data table that the 45-foot street frontage requirement be added to that the development summary table on the plat change from PUD for zoning type to single family residential with a PUD overlay. And that the subsurface bedrock depth groundwater, things like that are added to the plat, as well as easements for the individual lots. And I think that's the crux of it. So it's really looking for approval with those conditions.
questions?
I do have a question in regards to the bedrock requirement. We're doing soil borings in some of the areas, and what happens if you go 20 feet and you don't hit anything on the bedrock?
I don't know, Andrew, you have an answer for that? That's kind of your world.
Yeah, if you're outside of like the basement realm
Yeah,
for
yeah,
your
yeah.
buildings, yeah, I would just note that on the plat that no bedrock was encountered.
Okay, thank you.
Good question. Other questions? All right, then I would just look for a motion to approve the preliminary plat with the conditions identified A through F. Motion by Mr. Krieger. Is there a
Second.
Second, Mr. Blanky, very good. Anybody else on this one? All right, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? All right, very good. Thank you, Mr. Donovan. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
All right, let's go to our last item tonight. This is to review the public hearing comments and make recommendations to council on the overlay zoning amendments and map update. Brian, you have anything for us that's new on this one?
This is the same stuff you've seen before. There were no public comments at the public hearing, so it's really just a recommendation to move this on to council for their approval.
Could I have a motion to that effect?
So moved.
I'll take a motion by Ms. Talaga and a second by Mr. Blanky. I feel like an auctioneer for a second there. Any comments or questions? All right, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? All right. With that, I would ask for a motion to adjourn at 5:05. Motion, by Mr. Krieger?
Second.
Oh, welcome. Seconded by Mr. Byer. Write that in the minutes. All right, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All right, we're adjourned. Thanks, everyone.